A scary story about a hockey player who will soon turn out to be... You'll find out everything now. Who among us has not been collecting? I am sure that everyone has collected caps, chips, or cards at least once. As a child, I loved to collect various stickers. I remember I even had a special album where I collected almost 1,000 different stickers in 5 years. It's a pity that I lost it somewhere later. However, a few stickers are still preserved. They were hanging on the door to my room. She had a couple of stickers from cartoons and chocolates on her. The hockey player's sticker stood out in particular. She has a rich history. It was given to me by a classmate of mine in elementary school. At school, I was good friends with all the guys, but one day I had an argument with 2 boys who were a year older than me. One day after school, they ambushed me around the corner to beat me up. Fortunately for me, Lenya, my classmate, was passing by. He stood up for me. Lenya has been playing hockey since childhood and rarely passed by someone else's trouble. That's how he helped me out. And then we became friends. Later, it was Lenka who gave me this hockey player sticker. I remember that I gave him a gift in return. I made a puck with a stick out of plasticine. I'm 26 now, which means I graduated from high school almost 10 years ago. We stopped communicating with Lenya after 5th grade, and then he transferred to the gymnasium. Nevertheless, I have pleasant memories. I've been used to stickers for a long time, so I rarely pay attention to them, except if you want to get nostalgic sometimes. Yes, I live alone in an apartment that I inherited from my parents. My father died a few years ago, and my mother moved to a 1-room apartment. A 2-room apartment is more important to you, son, my mother told me. If you get married, you'll have a baby. The 2nd room won't be superfluous. However, it's not up to marriage yet. There are enough problems without it, but that's not the point. One evening, I came home from work. It's been a hard day. The labor inspectorate is due to come to work soon, so everyone was on their ears, preparing for the inspection. Not only was they delayed at work for an hour, but the bus broke down on the way home. The minibus with my number runs once every half hour, so I had to stay for another 30 minutes. On top of that, no one canceled the queues at the grocery store. In general, I came home tired. I was tired, as if I'd been carrying bags of bricks all day. I didn't even feel like eating, just relaxing. I kicked off my shoes from the doorway and collapsed on the bed. Pleasant moments of pleasure were disturbed by some vague feeling. I do not know how to explain it, but I felt somehow uncomfortable. Most importantly, I can't figure out what's wrong. The temperature in the apartment is normal. It does not blow. The neighbors do not make noise. You know, it feels like you're in a place where you don't like it. I had this once, as a child, when my mother took me to visit a friend. I didn't like it there at all. The apartment is kind of gray. The air is stuffy. The interior of the rooms is kind of dreary and depressing. My apartment didn't even look close to my mom's friend's apartment, but something was clearly wrong here. I involuntarily glanced at the door. At first, I didn't notice anything unusual. A couple of scratches, last year's calendar, peeling paint and stickers in places. That's when I noticed the hockey player's sticker. The athlete's eyes turned completely black. It turned out to be 2 dark circles. I was startled, but I tried to find a reasonable explanation for this. Perhaps this defect appeared a long time ago. I just didn't pay attention to it. The paint probably wore off over time, and I didn't even notice it. It would be fine, but why do these black circles look like they were burned out? I racked my brain for a few minutes, but I couldn't come up with anything. A phone call brought me out of my thoughts. Another bank called again, offering a profitable loan. I put down my cell phone and looked at my watch. It was getting close to night. I decided not to bother my head with guesses about the sticker and began to get ready for bed. The discomfort decreased, but I couldn't get enough sleep that night. The room was stuffy, even though I opened the window. Nasty mosquitoes, as if on someone's tip, decided to finish me off. Their squeaking infuriated me all night. Too bad I forgot to buy the poison. There were a lot of new problems waiting for me at work, and I should have shoved my dissatisfaction away. It's not easy for everyone right now, and it's definitely not worth pouring oil on the fire with a bad mood. At least I lasted the rest of the day. Tomorrow is the last working day of the week. That's all I was happy about. I got home surprisingly quickly. Having hastily cooked scrambled eggs with sausage, I quickly ate dinner and spent the rest of the evening watching TV. After turning around a bit, I fell asleep when night fell. I dreamed about hockey. I looked with admiration at how deftly the hockey players move on the ice. They skillfully hit the puck with their sticks, which flew from one corner to the other. 3 periods have passed, and the hockey game is over. The audience from the podium began to applaud the athletes for their bright game. I got up from my seat and clapped too, watching the hockey players. The blue team won, but for some reason I paid attention to the goalkeeper of the red team. The player took off his helmet, and I shuddered all over. An incomprehensible black veil surrounded the athlete's eyes. There were a lot of spectators in the arena, but I was sure that this hockey player was looking at me. He stood calmly in one place and glared at me. I don't know how long this staring game lasted, but suddenly I heard an incomprehensible whisper. Yes, yes, in a noisy arena among dozens of people in an endless stream of noise and screams, I heard someone whispering. I probably had that quiet voice in my head because there were 4 guys standing next to me who weren't paying attention to me at all and were watching what was happening on the ice. I tried to make out at least something from the words I heard, but I didn't understand anything. Some kind of gibberish. Eventually, the whisper seemed to cut me from the inside and my head hurt. I grabbed my ears and fell to my knees, after which I abruptly woke up in my bed. The voice was gone and the room was silent. Only rarely passing cars could be heard outside the window. I sighed heavily and stared at the ceiling. This is the second night I have not been able to sleep. Because of the dream, I remembered the sticker with the hockey player again. I got out of bed and went to the door, turning on the light. There was a hockey player on the sticker, exactly the same as in my dream. Instead of eyes, there are the same 2 black circles. I tore off the sticker, then tore it into several pieces and threw it into a bucket. Apparently, I think too much about unnecessary things, so I have nightmares. However, one oddity could not be denied. Dark circles remained on the door even after I tore off the sticker. What kind of mysticism is this? The circles didn't look like paint. It was more like burning out. However, the problem was that I personally did not carry out any such manipulations with the door. I was trying to find an explanation for this yesterday, when I first noticed the oddities with the sticker. I felt uneasy. I don't believe in all these spirits, ghosts, and other heresies, but the fact that there were strange circles on the door could not be denied. As a result, I brewed chamomile tea for myself and went to bed closer to 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up a couple of hours later and was even late for work due to poor sleep. Fortunately, my boss did not notice this, so I managed to avoid unnecessary hassle. The details of the working day can be omitted because the most terrible thing began the upcoming night. I planned to sleep off and recuperate at least on the weekend, but this was not to be. I went to bed early and even slept peacefully for several hours, but an incomprehensible rustle made me wake up. I don't even know if it's a gift or a curse to wake up to every sound. The first thing I did was look at my watch, 2:47. Then he turned his gaze to the window and was horrified. There was a man standing in front of my bed. However, even here I had doubts that this was really a person. Then who or what is it? How did a stranger get into my apartment? The moonlight and the lighting from the street helped me to see at least a little of the night visitor. It looks like it was a man in hockey gear. The face was not visible. It was hidden by the hockey mask of the goalkeeper. For a second, I thought I was in a bad dream again. I pinched myself. It hurt me, but the stranger didn't disappear. I closed my eyes and opened them again. The result is similar to the previous one, although the night guest came one step closer to me. Then I couldn't stand it, and, jumping up on the bed by half a meter, flew out of my room like a bullet. In a few moments, I reached the bathroom and locked the door. Now I'm faced with another problem. I found myself in total darkness. I was ready to cry from such a desperate situation, but suddenly I remembered about the lantern. The lantern. I cleaned the siphon in the bathroom a week ago and used a flashlight. I left it on the washing machine and still couldn't take it to the room and put it in its native place in the closet. I immediately thanked myself for my laziness and reached for the flashlight by touch. Let there be light, I thought happily, pressing the button to turn on the flashlight. Now I prayed that the battery wouldn't die and leave me in the dark. I pointed the flashlight at the door and felt my heart pounding anxiously. It feels like I've run several kilometers without a break. However, the worst was yet to come. I was horrified to see how the lock on the door began to turn counterclockwise. It became clear that the night guest decided to get me. I gripped the handle and lock hard to keep the stranger out of the tub. I was holding a flashlight along with it. For me, it was the most frightening thing to be alone with this hockey player in complete darkness. I don't know how long this battle for the bathroom went on, but at one point the door handle fell off, refusing to participate in this struggle with the otherworldly. It wasn't without consequences for me, because I bumped into the door and clung to that damn handle. Because it came off, I flew backwards, hitting the back of my head on the tub. Before I passed out, I noticed the door open after all. I woke up in the morning, lying in an unnatural position on a cold tile in a small pool of blood. I clutched the back of my head and cried out in pain. I hit a lot, but most of all, I was glad that I was alive at all. I carefully peeked out from behind the door. There was no one in the apartment, and the bright rays of the sun in the morning time acted as a guarantee of safety for me. I decided to treat the wound and went out into the corridor, heading for the first aid kit. I noticed small indentations and cuts on the linoleum. It feels like they were left here by someone who went skating. At least now I had no doubt that the night visitor was real. The truth of who he was and what he needed remained a mystery. I took a short pause and tried to think about everything and compare the facts. I realized that it all started with a sticker. Probably the whole point is not in it, but in the hockey player who is depicted on it. Now I realized that I tore it off at a very bad time. Fortunately, I did not take out the garbage on the street because there was almost no garbage. Putting the sticker back together wasn't easy, but I did it anyway. At least that's how I found out the hockey player's name. Conditionally, let's call him Alexander. It's great that we live in the digital age, and if not everything, then a lot can be found on the internet. So I was able to quickly gather information about the hockey player from the sticker. His sports career turned out to be eventful. Since childhood, he has been playing hockey, and at the age of 20, he already participated in international competitions. He had to play with various countries: Finland, Canada, Switzerland, and Japan. There were not always victories, but Alexander was not discouraged, and each game gave him practical experience. However, in one of the matches he received a serious truth, which put an end to his further participation in hockey games. What shocked me more was that one of the sources reported that he had died a week ago. Although the reason was not specified, it puzzled me. Alexander was only 41 years old. At that age, his whole life was ahead of him. At least the hockey player's death explained the events that had occurred a few days earlier. Now I had no doubt that the night visitor was Alexander, or rather his ghost. Here, you really don't want to. And after that, it will be difficult not to believe in otherworldly forces. I also guessed that the sticker and the black circles on it were some kind of harbinger before all this commotion. I couldn't figure out exactly what the ghost wanted from me. I decided to dig deeper and found Alexander's page on social networks. An unremarkable account. There are several photos, including those in hockey gear, a couple of reposts from sports communities, and under the most recent post about hockey, there were several comments like, "Rest in peace, my friend," and "Sleep well, Sonia. There are no former athletes." At least it became clear that the news about the hockey player's death was true, and not someone's malicious joke or fake. Finally, I checked Alexander's list of friends. I even found his mom there. I thought she might be able to help me in some way, so I texted her. He introduced himself as Alexander's friend and decided to ask a little about him. That's when details came up that I didn't know about. It turns out that Alexander was a really successful hockey player, as I read earlier. However, then a black streak in life seemed to decide to strangle the man. A sports injury was the starting point. After her, other health and life problems appeared, but the final verdict was oncology. Yes, it happens too. A man spent his whole life working on his body, watching his health, and fate gives him such a terrible verdict. A topic that you can think about forever. According to the woman, before his death, Alexander was carried in this direction, and through terrible pain, he wrote several dozen pages of his thoughts on this issue. However, the man was most infuriated by something else, namely that people see only the tip of the iceberg called success. After the injury, he was quickly forgotten by both the coach and the referees, as well as his teammates. The cruel reality is that today you are in the rays of glory. Your photo and name are on collectible stickers, and tomorrow you are waste material. Before the death of the hockey player, no one visited or cared about his condition, and only his mother became the person who saw him through to the end, giving the last rays of kindness and love. Only then did the woman receive condolences from several people, and Alexander received sympathetic comments on social networks from 3 of his most loyal friends after the funeral. I felt very sorry for Alexander and his mother after this story. I was ready to sink into depression myself from such injustice, but the woman asked me to go to church and light a candle for her son's peace. It seems to me that my Sashenka does not calm down in any way, explained the hockey player's mother. We need to put a candle for him and remember something good about him. Then he will leave our world with a calm soul. I initially thought about telling the woman about the strange events in my life over the past few days, but I didn't do it. I didn't want to seem crazy, and I just wanted to put pressure on the patient. I'm not a big believer, but I decided to follow the woman's advice anyway. I went to church, lit a candle for the hockey player, and mentally thanked him for the pleasant connection with the past. I was not eager to spend another night at home, so I decided to rent a room in an inexpensive hotel. Closer to 11 p.m., I checked into the room and took a shower. I was expecting new surprises that night, but to my surprise, everything went as well as possible. I did not hear any strange noises. The ghost did not come to me again. The stuffiness and insects did not interfere with my sleep. I stayed in the room until 12 o'clock in the afternoon, until the maid came and asked me to check out. I reluctantly headed back to my apartment. When I entered the apartment, I immediately noticed the linoleum. There were no marks from the blades of the skates, as if they had never existed. The handle on the door was also as good as new, as if I had never torn it off. Miracles, that's all. I went into the kitchen and was startled when I noticed a note on the table. It read, "Thank you for praying for me. I'm sorry for my harassment. I won't bother you anymore. Goodbye. Sincerely, Alexander." I crumpled up the piece of paper and threw it into the bucket. I felt calm in my heart, but I decided to get rid of the note in order to forget the whole nightmare of the previous days. Finally, I entered the room and saw that only cracked paint remained in place of the sticker, and the dark circles disappeared. Exhaling, I lay down on the couch, trying not to think about anything. About an hour after returning home, I went about my business and prepared for tomorrow's workday. I was comfortable in my private apartment again, and I could return to the usual rhythm of life. Although I still had some concerns, they turned out to be in vain. The night passed quietly and without incident. The next one, too. A month later, I almost didn't remember about the night meeting with the hockey player, but I learned a little lesson from this story. Now I try to be more attentive to other people's problems, because you never know how deplorable the consequences of indifference to other people's troubles can be. After all, already as a child, Lenya showed and proved to me that it is worth being kinder and more attentive to people. Now I will definitely not forget this, and I advise others to remember such simple truths.